I remember my mom telling me that here, you're no one, back home, you're somebody. The little you do back home can mean so much to people there. So I grew up in Gambia in the 90s, and we were in a dictatorship. And I grew up just seeing how not being able to speak up or say things that could help make a difference. And so I was driven to be able to see other paths to try and help my country. I moved to the US. I went to school in Arkansas. I was the only Black and woman in my electrical engineering class. And I also had to navigate being in a new place where there's not a lot of people that look like me. I realized that in Gambia, we don't really have a startup ecosystem here as much. It's still nascent. We have zero venture capitalists here. And even if I wanted to start my own fund, how can I fund these startups? So I started my own consultancy, Elev8te Consulting, and just trying to make sure that founders have all the tools and resources, and they're also they have the right structure in place as well to be able to grow and scale. With that, they get the right metrics to attract investors. I don't think we were taught in such a way we could question things. It's like A plus B equals to A, and you're just gonna say it's A, Why is it not AB?
Welcome to the Africa2100 Podcast, where we demystify entrepreneurship to make it accessible to the man on the street. I'm your host, Chudi Obiaya. This season, we are following the journey of those who were in the diaspora, but since returned to the continent and are building impactful ventures. Today's episode is for everyone pursuing their passion while finding ways to pay it forward. Our guest today is Jainaba Njie. Welcome, Jainaba.
Thank you, Mr. Chidi, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here today.
We're glad you agreed to come join us. What does Jainaba mean?
Actually, there's no direct meaning, but it's derived from the Arabic name Zainab. So we just Gambianized it kind of and added the J with the A.
Okay.
No meaning. I know in Nigeria and other countries, names are tied to meaning, but
Correct.
Not to my knowledge. Maybe someone out there can let me know.
Okay. So for anybody in the audience who has an understanding of the meaning of Zainab, please share with us. Can we start by having you introduce yourself to our audience? Who is Jainaba?
I guess I would start by saying Jainaba is an adventurer. I'm always looking to learn. I've moved around the different continents, and I'm originally from the smallest country in West Africa, Gambia, and I have a twin brother. So these are just random facts about me. Grew up here, was born and raised, and then moved to the US. But yeah, Jainab is just someone who's just curious, always looking for the next big thing and open to learning and meeting new people from all walks of life.
So what drives you, Jainaba?
Wow, that's a deep question. It's definitely something to do with my past. So I grew up in Gambia in the 90s, and we were in a dictatorship. And I grew up just seeing how, not being able to speak up or ask for change, and seeing how the economic development wasn't really going forward kind of pushed me to try and just see how I can make an impact outside just, maybe outside of the public sector. So I just grew up around not being able to speak up or, say things that could help make a difference. And I saw how just being in a dictatorship really deterred our economic development. And so I was driven to be able to see other paths to try and help my country. So what that drives me is just looking ways to help my community and the continent. Yes.
So when you say you grew up not being able to express yourself, could you tell us a little more about that. What were those conditions? What
Yeah, I don't know if you watched Harry Potter before, and they have this Lord Voldemort or whatever, and you couldn't really say his name. So it was just more around that. Though my parents had shielded me from what was really going on, but you would hear about horror stories about even speaking about the president at the time. We had secret services who could maybe easily get you disappeared. So hearing those stories, which of course later came to light after the dictator went, made you really scared to speak up or even question what was going on, or even suggest things. I was a kid, but it kind of limited my ability to come up with solutions or even ask questions. But that didn't stop me. I still did, just not publicly, maybe.
Were there other things besides the impact of the military dictatorship that informed your childhood in the Gambia?
Yes, I would say my family, both on my mom and dad side. I think both of them really valued education, and luckily, I got to see I got to see how the impact both my parents got from my grandparents taking them to school and then university, and also just the values around me. Of course, being in Gambia at that time, being a woman, you probably couldn't do as much, and I was always given the space to just go against the status quo. Like, I was able to do design and technology, coding, just doing things where it's not normally seen for a woman to do. And I think my family just gave me the space to explore without really limiting me.
How has that influence shaped where you are today or what you pursued as a career?
Yeah, I think it has influenced me in just always seeking knowledge and learning. That I was given the space to do so, and always just being able to try new things. Uh, I think maybe just being given that space enabled me to be brave enough to have, to pivot or try new things or go to new places. So just having that courage, I guess I would say.
How did you then make the determination that electrical engineering was going to be your life pursuit?
The fun fact is I never wanted to be an electrical engineer. I don't even think it came to mind. I actually wanted to be a computer scientist, which was, I guess now is called software engineer. So when I was growing up, I really picked up coding in high school. I was actually two out of, I guess, 80 students coding. And I really thought it would be kind of like, it's like magic, right? You write a code and something pops up. And I thought it would be a way to just overcome whatever barriers were there to create solutions that could help people. And so I was really into coding. But then when I graduated high school, and this was around 2008, I we have like this internship that we do before we go to college. And so I was paired with a tech company. And I thought I was going to, learn, like apply what I learned. But I was just put at the back of a van and basically asked to go to different offices, their clients, and clean their software, their viruses in their computers or update software. And so it wasn't really what I wanted. And the thing about it is there weren't really a lot of tech companies at that time. Just to give you context, this was around when Facebook maybe just started, maybe making more appearance, maybe in the continent or even the world itself. So I didn't really know what to do with what I was learning. There's this thing that you can only be what you see, right? And so I just didn't know what to do with what I was learning. So I went to my parents, who I mentioned earlier did, they both studied abroad, and asked them what they thought based on my strengths. And we all brainstormed and came up with electrical engineering. Of course, I'm passionate about, like I mentioned, the issues surrounding me, and power was one. We grew up with a lot of power cuts. It didn't matter, who you were, everyone, like, it was affected. And so that was one problem that they kind of gave me that narrative to solve. And they thought also maybe there would be some form of coding in there too. And so I went with that basically.
If you had a opportunity for a redo, would you still have gone down that path?
That's yeah. Then I wouldn't be here, right?
Maybe,
I
maybe
guess
not.
yeah. I don't think I would be in this path. Like maybe I would be the next Michael Zuckerberg. I don't know, but that's just joking. But I wouldn't be where I am. I think I was meant to go through this path and I learned a lot. I'm not an electrical engineer anymore. So I did, figure out eventually what I wanted to do. But sometimes you just need to put yourself out there and, there's this thing where you make a decision and you just need to own it, even though it might not go the way you wanted, but at least you learn and then you can always pivot, right?
So then, how did you reach the decision to leave Gambia to go abroad to study?
Well, like I mentioned, I just want to acknowledge my privilege, right? I grew up in a, family where, like I mentioned, education was there, and I I knew my parents went abroad, so I knew it would be something I would go, although not everyone has that opportunity, right? Especially in the continent. So, and then in Gambia, we only have one university. At that time, there weren't really even a lot of, I guess, the different type of background, like different type of degrees that were offered there. So I think a lot of people even before would still go out, even like to Ghana. A lot of my cousins went to school in Ghana who were older, like Kwame Nkrumah School, University. So I think it was just either you go to another African country or go up abroad. And for those who were here, I mean, they didn't really have a choice. They just needed to go with what was around.
So tell us about that transition after the decision was made.
Yeah, so I moved to the US. Of course, I grew up going to the US to see my mom's side of the family, but I've never lived there. And on top of that, I was in the South, the deep South in Arkansas. So I definitely went in thinking I'll see cowboys or whatever I see in the movies about the South, like the old movies and stuff. But yeah, I went to school in Arkansas. I was the only Black and woman in my electrical engineering class. And I also had to like navigate as well, just being in a new place where there's not a lot of people that look like me. But at least it also gave me the space to just be outside my bubble, like that, my fishbowl, I guess, and then be able to discover who I really was outside of the pressure of my community and society. But initially, it was a culture shock, even though I've been in the U.S. because I quickly figured that in Africa we're like a collectivist society, and in the U.S. it's like you're individual, they're individualistic. So just how things were back home wasn't the same.
Were there any experiences you still remember from that period that kind of reflected this individualistic versus what you were previously used to?
Yeah, I mean, for example, just I was, like I mentioned, the only girl engineer, and I would think that I would have a community of people to come and empower each other and help each other, but everyone was in their own space studying, and it wasn't really, I didn't really build a community there, right? It was just more about me. And even being around campus, I just saw how everyone had their goals. And in Africa, I feel like we do consider like not only us but the people around us, right? And I that was just not something I saw, and I myself started picking it up. Right? And it's great. I think there needs to be a balance to both. Like there's a lot of ambition, but it's just me rather than us. So that was like a different transition.
So when did you realize you were going to return, and how did you get there?
Yeah. I think it was a build up. Like I mentioned, I was like the only girl in my electrical engineering class, like Black woman. And that kind of followed me through my career as well. And there were a lot of there's a lot of stories I could say that happened that led me to be like, okay, I don't belong. But I just didn't feel like I fit in. Like I didn't really have someone to look up to that looked like me in most of the spaces that I was in. They have these people called sponsors normally who speak up for you or, advocate for you even when you're not around. And nobody's someone who understands you or look like you. And I didn't really have that. And I think the instant where I'm like, this is it was when um I found out what I was being paid versus what others were being paid in the company I was in. And I just saw that it was a huge difference. And it kind of I started questioning a lot. I realized that, oh, I wasn't really even growing in this company. Every year I would have reviews and, there would be excuses. I would see my white counterparts, prosper forward, but I didn't. And I remember my mom telling me that, here you're no one, back home you're somebody. The little you do back home can, mean so much to people there, right? And of course, the people in the US just couldn't see me in their shoes because they're not like me, right? And like I mentioned, I didn't really have, it's not even about Africans. I didn't even have like other Black people or women in my space, that could empathize or push me forward. So I think when that incident happened, I knew that this wasn't the place. And then also, I remember, because I always wanted to move back, by the way. Like, I've never was like, oh, I'm going abroad and I'm never coming back. I actually went to university to learn so that I could be able to come back and apply what I learned. So when I was working, like I worked in the US for 5 years, I remember always listening to this podcast called Building the Future by Doton. And he would always interview people building in Africa, like Ian, and there's like Dr. Ola and a few other people. And I just kept questioning, like, why am I not there with those people? Like, I just had this urge, and I kept fighting it because, of course, when you're in the U.S., you get stuck into the system. You start having a nice apartment, a nice car. You start really forgetting. Well, I started forgetting my mission. And so I think that was a reminder. And how I felt so uncomfortable. I knew that, I needed to be back home. And I think that event that happened really just solidified everything.
When you say the event that happened, elaborate, what event are you referring to?
The event on when we were shown what everyone was being paid in our company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was there also another event, the accident, as you wrote?
Yeah. So the crazy part is when I learned about what I was being paid, and I remember when I started a company, I did ask for more, like based on what was out there, right? And they were like, we don't pay anyone that. So of course, when I saw that, I was a bit upset. I'm like, this is not what was there. And of course, like being an international person, maybe they do put into these costs when it comes to visas and stuff, and that's the way to justify what they pay you, which I feel I don't agree on. But I was like, okay, I'm going to say a lot of people, at least maybe 10 people left or so. And I was like, I'm going to save up. And then at the end of the year, I'm going to leave. And I remember my mom and my twin came to help me. And then we were going to a friend for dinner, like a farewell dinner. And I was at a stoplight. I was the one driving. And then just when the light went green, I started going and a car just hit me. And my family was in there. So we had a car accident. And the ambulance came. And I remember the police came as well. And of course, they came into the ambulance and they saw my mom, who was like hijab. And they started questioning us and whether we should be here legally or not. And of course, like my mom was a diplomat, and when they saw that, they kind of backed off. But it still pushed me to go outside to talk, to just tell them what happened and show them around, which I couldn't at that time. I was hurt. I tried, and then I went back and went to the hospital, and I got charged for like careless driving, even though I didn't even physically drive. I was about to drive when it happened. And so it was a lot happening. I've never gotten a car ticket in my life. Never been to court, so I was super scared. And of course, when you call lawyers, they're telling you like, oh, like you're going to go to jail and you need to hire me. And, I was freaking out. I didn't know anyone like that could help. I mean, we had that family friend, but, like that community thing comes again, like who's going to be around me? Who's going to help me, And my mom was just she was just shocked of what was happening. And she was like, we need to go home. And I was like, well, maybe you can go and I'll come back. But then I remember I even told my company that I got an accident, and they maybe a week later wanted me to come back in. And I felt that, okay, clearly I'm definitely not valid here. They really don't care about what's going on. And I think that really was the final push, because to be honest with you, even though I was planning on leaving, I might not have left if it was the accident, because I kept coming up with excuses. But I think I really needed that extra push.
So you got the push, and then you now made the move. Tell us about the plan for your return.
Yeah, so I decided to move January 1st. Well, I decided to make sure I was in Africa January 1st, 2020, right? To me, it was like a new decade, and, I thought it would be a good time to just start a new chapter. And yeah, I moved. I had no idea COVID was happening. My background was, engineering with a specialty in renewable energy as well. So I wanted to go home to start my own renewable energy company. And of course, when I moved back, I started doing market research. And we only have one power utility in Gambia that was under the government, as a public utility. And so when I went to kind of showcase that I wanted to step away from the grid, like have these mini grids, like decentralized units, especially for rural areas, because some of the grid didn't really reach a lot of people in rural areas. But I think the regulatory body was still putting together regulations for that. And then also it seemed like I would have to sell it to the utility. And I think that wasn't what I wanted. I just wanted to be independent, right? And so that kind of, I reached like a barrier, a stopping point. Also, just trying to navigate like who to speak to. I looked really young when I was coming back home. A lot of people really thought that, I would send them my resume and they would still ask me when I graduated, or, so I don't think I was taken as seriously. And and then out of nowhere, COVID happened. So it was just like, this is maybe a needed, maybe slow down. And I also realized I didn't have the business background. So I decided to just take a step back and do some reflection and maybe look into business school, because I just thought that entrepreneurship would be a good route. And I wanted to make sure I was getting the right resources and tools and being around the right people as well.
Why was it important for you to be independent, specific to this power company or power supply company you're trying to be?
Independent from the utility?
Right, from the utility, right. Why was that important?
Of course, when I moved back, I was actually one of the maybe first young women electrical engineers in Gambia, especially specialized in power at that time. I was definitely recommended to work at that utility company, but I've been in the US for like 5 years, and we work a certain way, our work ethic is different. And I tried to reach out, but honestly, I just knew that I would lose myself when I got in, because it's different, like just moving back from one system to another. And like I said, my goal was to be independent from the public sector, right? Because the utility is a public sector. So I think for me, like, I just wanted to be able to not really directly, I won't say work for the government, but like just be on the private side. I think I would have more power and flexibility there to do things myself.
Was that your roadmap to start up a company upon return, or how did you reach that decision? Because it sounds kind of abrupt.
Right. So, when I went to the US, I was like, I'm going here to study electrical engineering because I want to solve the power issues for Africa, right? Because power is the building block of every sector. You can even see now in AI, right? You need a lot of power to power the data centers, and there's a lot of compute power that takes place as well. So, every aspect of anything that needs power, right? Even if it's indirect. And so I was like, yeah, I'm going to go come back. There's at least 60% at that time that didn't have access to power. And I really wanted to help bridge that gap. And when I graduated, they in the US, I think because it's a public, the utility is more on the public side. You needed like some form of clearance, and I'm not American, so that's how I ended up in the private side, the distribution side, which is like the residential, right? The distribution side is where the main grid gets connected to residential homes, and you take it from there. And so that's how I ended up there. And through there is when I saw, with the decentralized power units, like solar units, you didn't really need to directly connect to the grid. You could actually connect directly to people's homes and it could power them, right? And like I mentioned, we were just getting off a dictatorship when I graduated. So even more, I didn't really know where our country was going. And I really just wanted to still be outside of that space. And I thought solar would help decentralized solar systems. So yeah, that's how I ended up having that idea to start my own thing, just to be away from the public utility.
So COVID comes, throws a wrench in that, and then you encounter the issue with the lack of regulation, and you recognize that you need some business training. What was the next step?
Yeah, so the next step was to either go to a school that focused on entrepreneurship, which I know a lot of people will say entrepreneurship is not for schooling. You just need to go and try it and learn as you go. But I still don't agree on that. I think that you still need a little bit of knowledge to know where you're going, and I had zero. So I applied for this program called NEST because I wanted to be in the continent. I didn't even want to go anywhere else, and it was in Ghana. And I applied. I got to the last round, and I think the last round we had to go to Ghana. It was like a group interview, and then because of COVID, they had moved it. And so I'm like, well, I cannot really wait to hear back on, like, wait till a year or two. I don't know. With COVID, we have no idea what's happening to know whether I will get in or not. So I started looking into business schools that focused on entrepreneurship. And Estade, which is my MBA that I did, they focus on entrepreneurship. They're known to have an accelerator program. They're known to be number one in entrepreneurship. A lot of entrepreneurs, like Global, like a delivery company, that one of the founders came from there. So yeah, I decided to explore that. It was in Europe. It wasn't in it wasn't in the US. It was close to home, like same time zone, so that too helped. Yeah, and that's how I decided to go do that.
So how was the transition this time around? So you'd had the one into the US, which was one experience. What was this experience like, transitioning into Spain, I think it was?
Yes. So when I went to Spain, it was a bit different. Actually, Spain and I feel like all this Gambia, we have similar values. They really value family, community. So that was nice to see. But to be honest, the first year of the MBA, I was just in my own bubble. I didn't really get to even explore what Spain was or anything. I was with my MBA classmates. We went around to explore together, but we didn't really get to experience fully, like someone who would live in Spain, how it would be. So yeah, but my second year, I got to explore Barcelona. It was really nice, and it's not far from home. And, when I graduated, I was like, this is a really nice place. I really like it here. And maybe I should consider, once again, deterring away from my goals. Uh, it was very tempting. And by the time I graduated, I was definitely not in entrepreneurship anymore. I was in venture capital. And so I was trying to break in, and I was applying around. I think most of the VCs in Spain know who I am. This African girl was just reaching out. But because of my passport and because maybe I didn't really have the foundation and the network from these places, it wasn't something I couldn't really break in. And it was just a reminder again, like, like my mom's thing coming again, like, there you're nobody. Back home you're someone, like you have a community, they know you and they know your family and stuff. So I think that really pushed me again to come back. And it just, like, I don't know, at some time at point two, I'm like, I mean, it's great that I'm living here, but what about the impact that I want to make, right? And so that pushed me to come back again to Africa, Gambia.
What triggered that shift from entrepreneurship to venture capital? Because you went in seeking to build things and run things, and you came away on the venture side of the house, or venture capital side of the house.
Yeah, so before actually I went to do my MBA, it was still COVID, by the way. It was in 2021.
Mm.
So my mom worked in agriculture, so she, worked with women farmers, did a lot of projects with them. And so when the markets were closed, we would directly get produce from them. So I just noticed they gave me so much more produce than, I would ask for at such a low price. And I didn't really think it was fair. But they kept saying that regardless, the middleman would, they would have to sell it at that price regardless. So I wanted to help them negotiate better and have a longer time, like to, keep their produce fresh. And so I decided to see what I could design a solar, it's like a solar cooling unit so that they could be able to negotiate better. But they were like, no, we want to be more empowered and get access directly to the market. And so I was like, maybe I can help, have a platform that would share with them the daily market pricing, but also showcase different buyers all over the country, like restaurants, traders, what each area had, like through like IoTs, like sensors, like what each area had, like in terms of produce, so that they could reach them or go to them. And they didn't have to worry about like the transportation and logistics. So when I went to my MBA, I went with that idea, and they had an accelerator there. So I started that. And then I went to Kenya to test it out, because just looking back, I saw that Kenya was already established in the agricultural space. They had, farmers that were more tech savvy, like they could use mobile phones, and, they're known for agriculture there as well. So I went there, had a focus group, ran like some, testing and questioning and stuff. And then I realized the problem that I was trying to solve from Gambia is not what those farmers were looking for, So now you can see how different countries in Africa is different in every country. And so I think for them, they had issues within themselves coming together to sell, high value yield crops. And then also like logistics wise, like when you go up country in Kenya, there's some places cars can't even go in, right? And I didn't even put that into fact compared to Gambia. And so I just was like, I'm going to pause this and come back. And then when I went back, I did a venture capital and impact investing class. And I'm like, whoa, like I am so passionate about different things, especially when it comes to economic development, like healthcare, agriculture, like power, access to finance. And if I can do all of it at once, I would love to empower other people to do it. And so with venture capital, I felt like I could provide finances and resources. And yeah, so I kind of got into that.
And how has the experience been so far?
It's been great. So I did break into VC. I got into when I graduated. Before I graduated, I had an internship at an LP. So these are the people who give venture capitalists money. But I still wanted to be closer to like the entrepreneurs. So I got into a top venture capital fellowship program that kind of helps you close that gap on what they need for you to become a VC. And then I worked with, I got hired by a fund called Aduna Capital. There I was a venture partner and I was doing IC and all other things. And then was there for a year. And then I resigned from there. And then I realized that in Gambia, we don't really have a startup ecosystem here as much. It's still nascent. We have zero venture capitalists here. And even if I wanted to start my own fund, how can I fund these startups? Like they're not in a place where they could get investment. And so I wanted to, before skipping and going to start my own fund, I was like, why not just do the grassroots work? So I started my own consultancy, Elev8te Consulting. So the point is to help bridge that gap between like founder realities and investor expectations, and just trying to make sure that founders have all the tools and resources, and they're also they have the right structure in place as well to be able to grow and scale, and with that they get the right metrics to attract investors. So that's what I've been doing since I moved back. Of course, I now do it outside of Gambia as well. I share a lot of content on LinkedIn, so I've been having founders from all over, even outside Africa, as well. But yeah, I think there's like a huge knowledge gap when it comes to what investors are looking for. And like I mentioned earlier, when I was trying to do entrepreneurship, I wanted to know some few things that could guide me. And I feel like a lot of founders don't have that. In Africa, we don't have the resources enough to be like, we can just experiment. Capital is scarce. And so you don't have time to be like, let me test this and test that. Like you might just get one chance. So I think it's better to just know some of the knowledge that you need to move forward to the direction you want. And I try to make sure they have access to that as well.
So what has been the biggest learning in that efforts to help out these entrepreneurs in Gambia?
I think the biggest learning is they just don't know. Like, you just don't know what you don't know. A lot of people just take a business and they just set out and go with it, and then they think something's working because they might have some form of profit now. And, there's a lot of aspects of building a business, like in terms of also having a strategy in place and just knowing where you're going. What's the end goal? The end goal could be maybe exiting your business or being an industry leader or being acquired. Like, there has to be some form of ending or maybe next level of things, right? And I feel like people just blindly just go with it. And now there's this thing, we have this lifestyle businesses, right, where it just goes, there's no strategy in place. And then there's just not been a lot of success stories as well. Like you've seen Senegal, like, they've had Wave, and since then their entrepreneurship ecosystem has just blown up. People now see what it means to have a company go from 0 to 1, right? And the ways they've done it too, they can just piggyback from that and even do better. But yeah, I think it's just a lack of knowledge, and this could fall on even how to structure their companies, right, in a way that in the future if they need money, right, they could be in a good position because everything's there, all the records, all the legal stuff. And this doesn't just go for investors. Even if you're going to a bank, like they want to review your stuff, and if it's not in place, you're not going to get them.
So where is the consultancy today? What progress are you making?
So it's going. It's been a year. So basically, just like a business, just like any startup or business, you have to figure out your product market fit, right? And I'll call it like a service market fit. For me, I had all these services that I wanted to provide, but then along the way, I've learned that if what you want to offer is not what people want, and even what people might pay for. So for me, I realized that at least in Gambia, a lot of entrepreneurs weren't really willing to pay for my services fully. And so I've been looking to work with other businesses like, development institutions or venture capital who maybe have portfolio companies and maybe need help in some ways, and accelerators as well. So that's what I've been doing now. Of course, it's not easy also just doing business anywhere, but every place, has their own hard. And so, yeah, I've been trying to deal with some of those few things.
So I'm hearing that you are making a shift from business to consumer B2C to a business to business B2B in your business model.
Yes, though I'm pivoting now to advisory for entrepreneurs. So for entrepreneurs who just want a quick, challenge that they need to help with, maybe it could be an hour call, it could do a one-to-one. So, it's not like I have to spend like weeks trying to solve something for them. But yeah, I think I need to really find a balance because I was burned out a lot, like, and then there's no ROI at the end. Of course, I want to give impact, but then I have to survive. So, yeah.
So when you talk about giving impact and your desire to make sure there's impacts, what do you have in mind?
I think impact is just moving the needle, right? I think for me, the way I would see me providing impact would be sharing the knowledge that I gained over the years, right? And also helping create systems that maybe weren't there and might be useful to move people from 0 to 1, right? And then also on a macro level as well, help with the economy, help with creating jobs. In Gambia, the unemployment rate is high, right? And a lot of people take back ways. And I think entrepreneurship is a way to help, with job creation. So it's helping create more entrepreneurs who have successful businesses that can pay more people to get jobs. So
Well said. As you look back, what have you learned about your country and yourself?
yeah, I think our country has gone through a lot, right? And I think we're still coming out of a 22-year of a dictatorship, I would say. But I think we have a long way to go, to be honest. But I think we're resilient, and I feel like if you go around the map, a lot of Gambians are out there like doing big things. So I don't think that's the thing. I think we just need to change our mindset a little bit and just dream bigger. I guess for me, what I've learned about myself is I just love to learn. I love to empower others. And I just like to I think curiosity is everything. And I've learned that I can adapt. But I was able to do that because I was put into places where I didn't know people or anyone. But yeah, I've just learned that, yeah, I love learning new things. I love helping people within the continent as well. So yeah.
So how are you protecting yourself or ensuring that you don't get disillusioned? I'm thinking about your experience with the correctional center. Can you tell us?
Yeah. So, moving back, to be honest, I have had my own culture shock. I was here till high school, but I grew up as an adult abroad, right? So, and all places are different. But moving back, I really thought one thing and wasn't the other. So I think one thing I didn't mention earlier, what we need to learn in Gambia is coming together. Like, I think there's power to the people. Of course, like I mentioned earlier, like there's a lot of post trauma and, people get scared, of course, when it comes to speaking up and stuff. But the correctional center example was, I traveled and came back and learned that there's a correction center right next to my house. And of course, I mean, we need to see what this is about. Like, is it a correction center that would host people who have criminal records, or what's happening here? I mean, found out it was a rehabilitation center, but also they would host some people who had been caught with drugs or something. But I tried to rally the community. um, made a whole like list, a group chat, and tried to make people sign a petition and all these things. But when it came to act, I would say a handful of us, like maybe my mom and maybe 3, 4 neighbors out of 60, were the one really trying to speak up and move the needle. And I think that, it's really important to, be someone who takes care of your community, speaks up for your community. And when we come together, there's so much we can do, rather than if we're all in different places. And so I've definitely learned that not everyone is willing to speak up, but I would definitely advise that. But yeah.
Is there anything you think that we can do to foster that mindset shifts in the community? Because you started off earlier on talking about how we have a collective mindset, but when you talk about these issues and these problems, it's somebody else's problem. It's never my problem. So
I think the collective thinking is just more of like, you have a decision you have to make personally, but then you have to like think about your family, or like maybe someone needs help, kind of. I mean, in Gambia, it's a small community, so people are always willing to help each other. Like, even if you don't know, like a random neighbor will knock on your door, hey, I don't have food for my family. We'll give you. Like, it's a community. But yeah, I think I don't know about other African countries, but I think it's in Gambia, it's just what we've been through. People are still scared to speak up. They've been programmed not to speak up, right? And that's one. But even like daily community stuff, like I think being able to just get up and say, hey, people are littering here, like there's a whole trash dump here. And coming together to find a solution, I think there's a gap there. And I don't know I don't know what I can explain for that. I think maybe it's just a Gambia thing, but I think, yeah, the collectivism is just more maybe personal, like maybe with your family and the unit. But I think we definitely need to find ways to just speak up. It takes a lot of courage. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't think people know the power if we come together, right? And even like doing the correctional center, like, trying to work around going to government offices, going to different local government offices as well, talking to ministers, all these things. There were some people who were switching, people who were feeding information what we were doing within our group, because they thought that would be the easy way out. And the crazy part is, the people I was dealing against for the correction center, they actually commended me for being like an advocate for my community, even though we're not in the same side of the, war zone. But yeah, like, I think if you don't speak up or do something, who will? Like, sometimes you gotta just not wait for others to do stuff for you. Like, we can, and that's when it comes to even our government. Like, if we keep complaining and being a problem driven society rather than solution driven, we're always going to wait for people who might not meet what our expectations what needs to be done, right? So I think it starts from the little things. It starts from the community first, and then everything else ripples out.
So I want to push you on that a little bit. I wonder, is it awareness of that, or is it a lack of the critical thinking that's needed for disruption?
Yes, I think it comes to our educational system, right? I think, at least I'm not sure about other African countries. I can only speak for Gambia, but I don't think we were taught in such a way we could question things, right? It's like A plus B equals to A, and you're like, why is it not AB? You're just gonna say it's A, and so and I remember even like, when I'm meeting people, like, and I'm trying to give them another solution, but they're like, no, this is how we do it. But I'm like, okay, but there's an easier path. But no, this is the only way. But there's always other ways, right? And yeah, I think it has to do with how we're taught to not even not question how things are in general. When you look at it in a bigger, you know, lens, it could reflect back to this, right? Just reflecting and saying, is this right? Is there another way? Like, why is this like this? I don't think we really question things and think critically about things.
With that, I think it will be a good time to ask, what do you think about entrepreneurship on the continent, and what do you believe really needs to change for us to accelerate on the adoption of entrepreneurship?
Yeah, a lot of things. Like, I feel like there's I'm going to break it down to different sides of stakeholders and stuff. But I think, entrepreneurship, there's two things. Weirdly, the public sector has a huge play in entrepreneurship. And I think people forget about that. Regulations, and incentives, all these things are needed to help the entrepreneur move forward, right? So I think that in a lot of places need to be in place. In Africa, I think it's super hard for a lot of countries because you're not only building your business, but you're also building other businesses that need to be in place to work. There's not a lot of ecosystems around where, you can build on what someone else has had. Like, maybe someone has a payment system and you're trying to create a platform for delivery and, but in a lot of countries, apart from the big four, I would say, you have to build the payment and you need to build, your own your own solution though on what you wanted to initially do. So I think what we need to do is try to help with the ecosystem building, right? And just showcasing people, hey, see what's out there, see what the gaps, the white spaces are, and see how you can feel it so that everyone can, benefit from you being present, right? And then of course, like I mentioned, the regulation side, like it's hard getting capital in Africa, to be honest. Of course, there's venture capital around and so, but in a lot of countries, debt is expensive. Like in Gambia, it's like 20 something percent. Like as a new entrepreneur, how are you going to take that? And before you even start making money, you have to return that. Like your business will fail, right? And so I think we need to find more ways to have people access capital, maybe through even the local, it doesn't even, we have angel investors. When I went to Lagos and I learned they were like, I need to go back to the number. I think there were like 5,000 angel investors currently in the whole continent so far that are present here in the continent. And that's super small for a billion, how many billions of people in Africa. So I think we need to find other alternative ways, and we need to have more people to take risk as well on our entrepreneurs, right? Sometimes just to make an impact. You might not get your return, but I feel like we need people to believe and risk, take the risk and help other people break through, create new industries, create better solutions that could put us forward. You've seen in Silicon Valley, people give off money like it's nothing. And of course, the environment is different. But we sometimes need to give entrepreneurs more grace and just believe in what they're doing and back them. But yeah, I think I would say those, like local capital, working with the government for better regulations and incentives, and creating ecosystems where people don't need to do too many things and deter from their original goal. Yeah.
Thank you for that. So what's advice would you give to others who are listening, who wish to have or who have a similar passion as you and are looking to make similar impacts as you are striving for?
I would say to, just start. I know a lot of people are scared, especially those from the diaspora trying to move back. Like, you don't really know what's going on, but you don't really know the actual problems in the continent. You have to be here actually to know, right? And of course, it's not easy. And to be honest, I know a lot of people want to come back, but not everyone can, right? And finding ways, like I mentioned, being a local investor, like being an angel investor, there's different ways to make an impact. So I think the advice I would give is just finding ways that works for you to make an impact. If you can't make it here, there's investing. I think is a good way to touch on different problems, and push people forward. But yeah,
Any final words, Jainaba?
I would say it's hard everywhere. I know in the continent we have a lot of issues and problems, but I guess you need to choose your heart, right? And yeah, I would say choose your heart, but it's hard everywhere. So don't give up on the continent. Try to see how you can make an impact. It's a global world now. You don't have to be here, but you can still make an impact from wherever you are. There's different avenues. So.
And what's next for you?
Man. I don't know. I mean, of course I'm doing Elevate right now. Maybe get back into venture capital. I'm not really sure on that yet. But I'm trying to just put myself out there more. I'm from the smallest country, so just trying to explore the continent and just other emerging markets and just seeing how I can, continue to make an impact.
Thank you, Jainaba. It has been an inspiring and motivating conversation, learning more about your journey, as well as the advice and guidance you've given to those who are listening in today. So thank you for that. As you've heard, Jainaba has told us that you can continue to pursue your passion no matter where you are. You don't necessarily have to come back home, but you can still make an impact from wherever you may be in some form of fashion. And don't be distressed or give up as a result of the challenges. That's the more reason why you're needed. Exactly. So you heard this. If anything you heard resonated with you, please remember to subscribe. Just click on that button, and that way you don't miss any future episodes. Again, I'm your host, Elev8te, and I look forward to seeing you next time.
Yeah, thank you for having me.